Lanie is a nickname that I go by, but everybody knows me. No, it's fine. I'm just, whatever.
Can you change
We
it?
can change it.
Okay, Lanie,
Yeah.
Lanie.
Lanie. You want to just Lanie
Yeah.
Thompson?
Lanie Bishop.
Lanie Bishop. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Lanie.
that's fine.
Lanie?
Yes,
Okay.
that'll be less confusing.
Yeah. Saying lady.
So I was.
That's it. That's correct. Yes.
We are going live in 5, 4, 3. Whoa! And now it is time for Church Meets World with Pastor Greg.
Where the church meets the world, we find our way.
Well, good morning. This is the Church Meets World, and I want to talk about that in a little bit. But my name is Pastor Greg from Living Lord Lutheran Church right here in Vero Beach, Florida, 2725 58th Avenue. If you're interested, online at livinglordlutheran.com. We worship on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., and every service is a service of Holy Communion. My dad, Lord rest his soul, grew up on the eastern shore of Virginia, and there are a lot of Methodists on the eastern shore of Virginia then and now. And they had communion twice a year. And my dad always used to say, I made sure I wasn't sick those 2 Sundays because otherwise I'd have to wait 6 months to have Holy Communion. So, but we believe that Lutheran worship is deeply sacramental, rooted in the sacraments of baptism and Holy Communion. So we're a smaller congregation, but pound for pound, I tell our people every Sunday, I'll put us up against the largest churches in the area and around the country for in terms of serving God and neighbor. And so we do people do an amazing job with their generosity, and their heart is full of love and in Christ Jesus. And so the one example I always like to use, about 3 years ago, some of our members started a little ministry with Our Father's Table Food Pantry here in Vero. On Thursday afternoon, making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which seems like a simple thing, but since we started that ministry at 52 weeks a year, 3 years, that's 150 weeks times 100, that's a 15,000. We've made about 15,000 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to go out with the other deliveries that Our Father's Table Food Pantry delivers to the people in the community. And they like all the little goodies, but they particularly love peanut butter and jelly. So anyhow, so Church Meets World, as we were trying to think of a name for a title for this podcast, we went through hundreds of possible names, and I kept coming back to Church Meets World. Church being this sacred institution, although very fallible and fraught with issues itself, and world being the secular world in which we live and how the two come together. And it doesn't roll right off the tongue, Church Meets World, but it does describe what it is that we do in the church and what we're going to be talking about today with you guys. I remember way back in 1975 when I was in the golf business in the Washington, D.C. area, I attended a midnight worship service at a mainline denominational church. And I never thought I'd be caught dead in a church on New Year's Eve, especially. But anyhow, there I was with some friends of mine. And I'll never forget this. The pastor said in his message, one of the things he said was, as we become closer to God, we get further away from humanity. And that always struck me, and I didn't quite know how to process that. But later on in my life, I started attending Lutheran churches in the Philadelphia suburbs as I was older and so forth. And I was so moved by my pastor, and he ended up, in his messages, that he ended up changing the choice of my careers and so forth. But one of the things I love about the Lutheran Church, and it's not unique to us, is Martin Luther revolutionized the understanding of what it means to be a Christian. And every day we do the ordinary things in our lives by whether you're serving as a king or a ruler, or whether you're cleaning houses or whatever you're doing, our divine callings that God calls us to do, changing diapers, raising a family, going to work and do the things. So, but he stressed the dignity of all work in his theology and so forth, and we live that out today, and I know you guys do too, and I'll get there in a second. But it is a universal call, in our opinion, in the Lutheran Church, rooted in our baptism, that we are called to serve God and neighbor, to work for justice and peace in all the earth, among the other things that we covenant with ourselves to work towards in our lives. And so that has led me here today to create this podcast and to have you guys here. And so I want to introduce my two amazing guests this morning, among many in our work today. Lanie Bishop, who is a biblical counselor at, and Kathy Thompson, who is the office manager at Women's Refuge Center of Vero Beach. You guys do an amazing work for this community and larger. And I was looking on your website the other day, and I'm amazed at how many people, both paid staff and volunteers, you guys have. It's just it takes a couple of pages to get through all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to talk today about what you guys do in the community and beyond, because your work is definitely biblically based. It is where church meets world in the work that you guys do, and we're so grateful for that, and are those who work with you. But we're coming up on 30 years of ministry in this community, so talk about how you guys got started.
Well, in 1997, Donna Robart, our founder, actually started the Women's Refuge, but it had actually been birthed in her heart in 1975 when she had been a psychiatric nurse, and she was, at that time, she had a home for children, teenagers, and the Lord just dropped it in her heart that she was going to have this type of a ministry, that she would minister to hurting women. And her intention when she came to Vero Beach was actually just as a layover before she went to Romania. She thought she was going to do this in Romania. And her best friend, Barbara Gardner, was here, and she and Barbara started the ministry with the help of her husband, Ted Robart, in 1997. And it was over on 20th Avenue, the Twin Bears, in a little house there. And it just grew after that. And we are based on biblical principles, and that was her key, because in the psychiatric hospital that she was a charge nurse of, she just saw people coming like a revolving door, in and out, in and out, in and out. And they do the, psychiatric therapies, and they do the medications and things, but she says, we have to get to the root problem. And she felt very strong in her heart that the root problem was faith in God and just their relationship with Him. And as the doctor started noticing, as she was just ministering, just being Donna, to these clients, that they weren't coming back. And so they started letting her actually preach the gospel in a psychiatric ward. And so that was the birthing of it. And so then she started it, and we've just grown from there.
Amazing. I've been doing this work for 20 plus years now in ordained ministry in the Lutheran Church. And when I started the going through the system, everyone told me to get a therapist and a Christian therapist, and so I did. And I've had the same person for 20 years. And when I get together with, he's still in Pennsylvania right now, but I get together with him, what I want him to say to do to me is to affirm that I've been heard.
Yes.
To say to me, Greg, I think what you're saying is, so he'll recite back to me what he thinks he heard me say, and that in itself is, the world is so busy, and we just don't attend to one another, I don't think, the way we should. But he would always end with, he said, Greg, I want you to work on finding a biblical connection to what we're talking about today. So he always rooted it back in the Bible, and it helped open up to me a whole other dimension to our time together. So it's a very powerful thing that how the Spirit works in folks and so forth. Kathy, all of your counseling is biblically based. So how do people end up coming into Women's Refuge Center of Vero Beach? How do they find you guys?
That's one of the things we're looking at right now is how do people hear about us? And one of the things we're finding is through friends and family that they talk about their experience through the refuge, doing Google searches through churches, through our donors and supporters. And just right now, it seems to be a lot of word of mouth and people who've been through the program.
You know, and so you just said something that interests me, and that is the word refuge itself implies something. It's a place of safety, of a shelter from the storm, if you will. How do you interpret that?
It is a refuge. I came to the refuge 11 years ago, hopeless.
You've got quite a story on it.
Yes, I was at the end of my rope, and I came here as a result of a friend who had come here. I came here to a retreat, and that led to me coming back 3 months later to do the 9-month program that the refuge offers. And there is just, and being the office manager now, I hear so many when people walk in the door, when they walk onto the property, a sense of safety and a place
Yes.
of peace and calm.
So tell us, if you can, what kinds of, I don't want to use this word, baggage is not the right word. What kinds of issues are folks walking into your door with?
Right. Well, we see, of course, with the world the way it is right now, we have seen an increase in anxiety. That's a type of fear,
Yes.
fear of all kinds of things, depression. And we're realizing that, and of course, all the psychology tells us too, that trauma is a big factor. We just don't know how to process life. And you mentioned Martin Luther earlier, and one of the things that we try to do is says we live by faith, right? That was his hallmark. And we just want to have people be able to live by faith in the living God. And they don't know how to equate that with their application of everyday life. And so that's a big part of what we do. And so many of the things, the trauma, the marital discord, the anxiety, the depression, all those things do come in, and just putting biblical principles to it helps them to live by faith.
And so folks who come to you guys are both Christian and non-denominational and nuns and other faiths and so forth. And so how do you talk to me about your intake procedure? How do you decide whether or not Women's Refuge Center is right for the person you're looking at across the table?
Well, we have two different applications. We have the basic application, which Kathy takes quite frequently, and that's for our community counseling center, which we have 6 biblical counselors. So we do community counseling, we do counseling online, that type of thing. So they'll call in, and she will fill out a form, and then that is given to a counselor that is on premise that day, and we all have our little specialties and times that we're there, so it's based on that. And then we have a larger, more in-depth application that's on our website at womensrefugevb.org, and that is on our residential side, and that's for women who need more help. And that's very lengthy, but it's very gives us a good picture of their life and what they need, and then whether they are actually an applicant that's good for our program.
I remember when I was a kid growing up on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, my father was in the banking business. And back then, to get a car loan, you had to fill out an application. The selection committee would meet once a week, and it would take 10 days before you heard a response. But now you can fill out a credit application online and have a decision like that. How does the process work for you guys? Is it instantaneous, or do you have to go through a series of screenings and background checks and the like?
Well, as soon as we get the application, Kathy's very good. She lets them know, almost immediately that we have gotten it. And our desire is that within 24 to 48 hours that they would hear from us, and then we walk them through the next steps, whatever those steps are for them.
Kathy, I'm sure that people who have reached the point of contacting you guys and have gone online or called you or walked in your door, or they're not interested in getting a decision a week or 10 days from now. They want to know right away how they can get involved.
Yeah, and we do. I get a lot of, I want to come in tomorrow.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's not part of our protocol because we do do an interview, and that takes time. And then just going through the process, checking some references and things like that. So it can take some people, we may get in a week.
So it can
I would
take a
say
while.
the average is maybe 2 weeks.
And
from
that's
the time.
for the residential
For the
program.
residential.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
If it's
right.
counseling, it's usually I take in the information, take it to a counselor. They tell me who would be the best counselor. I call them back, and usually we can get them in fairly quickly.
So for you guys have offer counseling for both a residential, I want to talk about both of these, and just a one-on-one counseling or group counseling, right? You guys do both. And so how many residents do you guys have right now on campus?
Currently, we have 2, and we have 4 kind of in 2 more in the wings waiting for information for them to be giving to us. We can take up to 8,
8.
but we are excited about the 2 that are there. We see God really moving in their hearts.
Nice.
One thing you were saying about the levels, and that's we have different levels of counseling. And so the first level or the first stage of counseling is that one-on-one counseling. And then we have support groups. That would be more like your group setting. And we have a Monday night group. We have a anger group. We have a Bible study. We have a what's called Shelter in the Storm, and that's for sexual abuse. We also have had Surrendering the Secret, which is a post-abortion group. We've also had grief groups. So we try to meet the person where they're at.
Nice.
And then most recently in the past couple years, we've reinitiated the weekend initiatives. And so one is called the Renewal Weekend, and that's renewing the mind based on Romans 12:2. And then what's coming up in April 9th through the 11th is the Codependency Weekend.
Yes, I saw that on your website this week.
Yes.
So say more about that for a minute.
Right. So we've realized, the biblical idea of codependency sometimes beats heads against each other because codependency is a secular term. It was formed in the 70s. But as we know, everything in the secular world is just a takeoff from what's true. And in the Bible, it's called people-pleasing and the fear of man. And that's really what we're dealing with. And it's when people are over-functioning or under-functioning in just life. And why are they doing it? It's getting down to the roots that we all have needs that God has given us, and we try to get those needs met by other human beings in some very unhealthy ways.
Nice.
And that's what we work with.
And Kathy, you were in the program for how long?
I did the 9-month program, and then I went home and 10 years later came back and actually 2 years ago completed our internship, which is 15 months.
Wow.
So I did the whole program can be up to 2
Yeah,
years.
so you've really been through the whole
Yes.
program. So you've
Yes.
seen it from both an insider as well as now helping others
Absolutely.
who do the
Yes.
same thing.
Yes.
Now, when you first went there, were you a resident?
I was a resident when I came for one of the retreat weekends, and that was actually I'd grown up in a Christian family, thought I was a believer, and it was at that weekend that I accepted Christ into my heart, and then I came back 3 months later for the 9-month program.
And what was a typical day like for you in that time?
You're up at 6:30 in the morning for devotions.
Right,
They have
regimented, maybe?
Yes, each resident has a schedule. We have devotions, then they walk, and then it's breakfast, and then we go over to the office for a time of prayer for the Refuge, and they do what we call touch-ups, cleaning up, and then depending on where you're at in your time there, You work anywhere from 2 to 4 hours at the refuge doing different chores, whether it's cleaning, doing yard work. And when I came there and heard yard work, I was like, oh, no way. But the person who does it just relates yard work to the Bible in so many ways. And I remember one of the ways that she related was we were pulling weeds. And she would say, for every weed you're pulling out, think of all the weeds that God is pulling out of your life.
You're
All
doing
the
some pruning.
yes.
Yeah, right.
So that would be, and then there's study time. You have a curriculum to follow, different books and videos and CDs to listen to. And then usually every evening there's some sort of meeting or a study time for you to have. So, and then there may be groups going on, like if it's appropriate, they would go to the shelter from the storm or anger management class.
Wow.
It's very structured,
That
but
sounds
very
like,
good.
It probably needs to be that
It
way,
is.
right?
It is. I needed the structure.
Yes.
Really,
Yes.
really well. So,
Lanie, I want to talk more about the biblical groundwork from which you guys operate, and I'm guessing you don't need to be a believer to be accepted into the program, right?
No, you do not.
Yeah. And can you leave there being the same as you came in, or most people transform?
I don't think you can leave the same. I think the Holy Spirit really works in the women, and like the word is living and active, so it's going to penetrate. And that was one of the reasons I came, because I saw as I came. Because my daughter was having some marital things. And so I came and I just saw the women there. And they would come in with their heads down and then they would leave with their heads up and smiling. And it was transformative. And so I thought, I have to be a part of this. And I just began to volunteer. From volunteering, went to the board. From the board, then came on as a volunteer counselor.
Nice. Speaking of organization, you guys have both a board of directors and paid staff, right? And where do you receive most of your funding?
Yes. Well,
that I believe is the
That's good looking one up.
60% of our is through donations from donors.
So that would be a combination of events and
We have events that we do each year. We have 3 events.
we have 3 events. We have, which one is coming up in May, and that's a health and wellness program, and that's going to be at Oak Harbor, and that's May 13th.
May 13th. Yes.
And that's where we have a panel of physicians, and the community actually gets to ask questions of them. And then we have the golf tournament, which is how we got to really know you.
I played, if you want to call it playing, but I didn't. I was there.
Yes, and we
On the golf
appreciate that, because honestly, the registration fees and everything, there's some profit there, so we put that towards the program, and that's important. And then our big event is our Christmas gala, and we always have a speaker. And this last time we had 3 or 4 testimonies of just women who've gone through the program and how it radically changed their lives.
Well, having played in the golf tournament last year, and I'm a former golf professional and played much in the last 30 years, but one thing is I noticed about just what I do is looking around at the people who were there. And I could tell they had a real affinity for what you guys do. They knew about your organization, and golf was sort of as important, yes, but it was incidental to why they were there. I was just very struck by that. And I'm guessing you get mostly repeat folks coming back to that tournament every year?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And you guys are going to be at Vero Beach Country Club again this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
That may be enough of an incentive for me to try to play again. As an aside, I just bought a brand new set of golf clubs, woods, irons, new golf bag. So I've recommitted myself to playing. So your tournament in September will be
Great.
my reintroduction to playing the game, I think, maybe at a competitive level. So we'll see.
We're excited
Great.
to see you there.
Great.
And so you have the tournament, and tell me again, the 3 events are?
So it's the health and wellness in May,
Yes.
the tournament, the golf tournament in September,
And
and then the gala in December.
December.
And so we'll take a break, and we'll be back just shortly.
Okay.
So, how do you become
You're still alive.
a Christian counselor?
Well, in my case, I am a retired nurse, so I had psychology background. But Donna had put together a biblical counseling, being just the woman of God she is, and also having the psychiatric background. She had put together a biblical counseling course, and I took that, and it was a full year of studies and then counseling under someone.
And are you credentialed or licensed? Or
That is a certification program that she puts us through, or had put us through. I have gone on and I have gotten certified through AACC and coaching through Living Coach systems. And so many of our counselors have been through similar things. Most of them have some type of certificate and specialty certificates. So mine is trauma. We have a woman who is in addictions, one who is more into life application type thing, coaching. So we all have our little specialties, but we can all serve because the Bible serves all different problems.
I'm thinking out loud here now. So when I leave you guys physically from the facility, or my time is up, or I'm not sure what the word is, moved on, graduated, or whatever, what happens from there? Is there follow-up in terms of what happens next, or am I on my own? Kathy, can you?
I think that kind of depends on the individual. For me, I kept in contact. I graduated from the 9-month program back in 2015, and I never lost contact with the Women's Refuge, because while I was there, they became family. They are my family, and I could call up if I was having a hard time, and I could talk to a counselor. And we do encourage if they've been there for the program, to continue counseling. And if they're not from the area, we can do it by Zoom.
Remotely, yeah.
So we don't abandon them. We're there for them to continue their progress.
So have there been success stories, but have there been non-success stories in your guys' time with the refuge? Folks who left and just drifted away, and you didn't know how to reach them or couldn't reach them or whatever?
Sure. We've tried to do like alumni get-togethers and things, and when we reach out, the addresses we get back, and they've changed and haven't given us any forwarding or anything like that. So sure, but our desire and hope is that we gave them the seeds to go forth in their life and really to live that faith out. So that's our hope.
And so, tell me how churches are involved with you guys. How do you guys involve yourself with churches locally and beyond?
Well, we have a good relationship with many churches like yours at Living Lord Lutheran, and they support us, one, by getting the word out about us financially. Oftentimes their members will come and volunteer, but we do have a good rapport. We are non-denominational, and we love when they ask us to come and just give a testimony or tell about that our services. We are what they call a parachurch, which is we come alongside of churches and help them minister in areas that, as you as a pastor, you have your hands full. And for us to come alongside of you and be able to minister truth of the Word of God to your parishioners is powerful. And so we offer that to the churches.
It is powerful. As a ordained pastor in the wider Christian church, one of the joys that we share, I think, is seeing God's Word lived out in people. And it's also, there are times when I don't know if what I say or do in my messages or in the work I do makes any difference in people's lives. And that's a frustrating thing. And most clergy share that. Where is this person going? So you talked earlier about the joy you guys get out of seeing your work bearing fruit in the community. By Kathy, you're a living proof of that. By turning around, doing good in the community. I don't always get to see that. One of the biggest challenges for me as a pastor or clergy is, does what I do make any difference in the lives of people I serve in the church and in the community? I think it may be a little bit more tangible for you guys because you're more closely connected with a very specific thing. You're dealing with someone's life and mission beyond the doors of your place. So talk about that for a second.
Well, I can tell you that the word that the pastors preach on Sunday mornings do impact. I can tell you when I have a woman sitting in front of me in the counseling room, or I have a husband and wife, or I have a family sitting in front of me, oftentimes they refer back to what their pastor said. And, how can I apply this? How's this applicable to my situation? And so that's where we really get to join what you have already planted.
Nice.
We get to water.
It's good to hear that. One of the things it always baffles me on Sunday morning as we're wrapping up worship and people are walking out the church into fellowship hall or going home. I often will get this, Pastor, I love your message, and they'll say what they think they heard me say, and I think to myself, I don't remember thinking that. So you never know how God's word will fall on those who hear it.
Right.
That's I guess why they call it a living word, because
Exactly.
it's different. So, and I've never had anybody say, Pastor, that was a terrible sermon. They may be thinking that, but they don't say it. So talk to me about the resale store a little bit. How does that work?
Our resale store is located at 1615 10th Avenue, and they take donations of, it can be clothing, household goods. They do take some furniture that you would need to call to see if they're open for that.
They've taken some of my furniture.
Yes. Different things like that, household things. And then what happens is we get a lot of calls at the Refuge that they want to donate because they want to give things to women in need. And at the Refuge, we don't have a place to keep a store things. So what happens is it goes to our resale store. If our women need things when they come in, they can go to the resale store and get whatever they need. Nice. And then the resale store is open to the community. And what happens with the sales from that is all the proceeds come back to the Refuge to benefit the Refuge. So that is a major part of our support is through those. And our resale store we have some staff and we have many volunteers.
I was going to ask you, so you have both volunteers and paid staff?
Yes.
That run.
Yes.
I know it's a big operation, and I often donate stuff to Goodwill, and I look out back and I think of all that stuff they have out back there that's in bins and so forth, and what a nightmare that must be. So do you guys have to deal with that kind of thing?
Yes,
so
we do get things, and we do sort through things, and we make sure they're in good shape. And what happens is what we're not able to use, then we will donate to Goodwill or something like that.
So it goes on to some other.
It goes on to another place that can use it. Yeah.
I want to talk for a minute about this is a sensitive thing. Law. Do you never need to get law enforcement involved with your clients in terms of restraining orders or anything like that, or behavioral issues that?
Mostly for safety, not necessarily for us, but sometimes for the clients.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're dealing with people who are struggling. So there have been times, a couple, very rare, but we have had to have the police department, which is wonderful. They're just right down the street.
Yes,
so we have had to call them because someone was really considering suicide.
Yeah.
And it was a protective mechanism for them.
Yeah.
And everyone that we have actually had to call on, they have gone on, right? They did not commit suicide. So that's been a big part. If we are ministering to a woman who fears for her life or something, we will put them on notice. But we've never had an incident there, so that's nice.
Yeah, but I'm guessing you have to be attuned to look for
Sure,
behaviors or signals in someone that there's some,
we do.
yeah,
We
right.
do.
So
Very much so.
what are some of the threats or challenges that you guys face as a ministry in this community and beyond? So funding, perception. What's some of the challenges you guys face?
Both those. Funding is the big one because we are a 501c3 and we are religious. So we are a Christian-based 501c3, which means we do not take any funding from the government. And in that, what happens is we do rely heavily on the partners, churches that partner with us. We rely on, as Kathy said, the donors, which are 60% of our income, local businesses, Christian local benefits, grants, foundation things that we get. The resale store is huge.
Yeah.
Nice. And so, are you looking 5 years down the road? What's some of the things you've got on your screen in terms of the things that are coming down at the road at you guys that you need to address right now?
Perception. You said perception. A lot of people believe because we are called the Women's Refuge.
Yeah.
Terms tend to change over time, what people understand a term to mean. And now the refuge, the word refuge, really means like a shelter, a homeless shelter, or someplace for someone who's in crisis. We are not a safe space. We are not a homeless shelter. We are a biblical counseling center in which we have different levels of counseling services. So we have, like we have said, we've got the counseling one-on-one, we have the support groups, we have the weekends, and we have the residential program. But the residential program is not just for housing. It is for those women who are serious about getting whole and walking in hope and walking in faith. And so it's hard to get that out because just the name alone. But we're working on it, and of course Google and all those things they're helping us look at that.
Kathy, why would I come to you if I felt like I was in crisis as a woman, as opposed to other agencies that Lanie might have referenced? That why would I want to find you guys first, or maybe you're not the one I first go to?
I believe because it is biblically based, and I just, from my own experience, it's just amazing. I look at a difference between Christian counseling and biblical counseling.
Say more about that.
I had years and years and years of, quote, Christian counseling. And biblically, everything is based on the Bible. And Lanie can explain a little bit more about the difference between biblical and Christian. But everything that I was taught was they could show me a scripture that backed up the principle behind what they were teaching me. And one of the things that I learned while I was there, I came in a victim. I was sexually abused as a child and lived my life for, goodness, almost 50 years as a victim. And when I came to the refuge, I was confronted by the truth that I am not a victim. I am a survivor. And thankfully, because of the refuge and God, the way that it's not about the refuge, it's about God, what God is using the refuge to do. It's God's work. It's not ours. And that's just it's not about an individual, it's about Jesus Christ. And that's the reason, because man can't change me. Only Christ can change me.
Amen.
And that's what it was for me, was taking my focus off of me and my circumstances. My circumstances didn't change, but my perspective of those circumstances changed in light of Jesus Christ.
You have no reason to know this, but in my first church in 2005, in 2008, I came from the golf world. but I had a homicide in my church office in January of 2008. A woman came in, who was a member of the church, by the way, came into my church office when I was away, and it's a long story, it's complicated. But anyhow, so the shooter came into the church. There was a woman in the church for the week I was gone we were helping her make some money because she needed it, and the shooter thought that I was having a relationship with the woman in the church office, and she put 2 bullets in her head at point blank range. And so for weeks, I beat myself up about what could I have done differently to have prevented this horrible thing in the church. And by the way, we saw the church at its very best through this horrible thing that happened. But I finally went to one of my professors at the seminary who taught pastoral care and counseling, and she just opened up for me something that I never thought about. And I was a pastor, and she said, "Greg, you were a victim as well. You've been victimized just like the deceased has been." So that changed my whole perspective on how I looked at that and how I looked at my ministry too. So I can relate what you're saying, Kathy. It's a very powerful thing. Can you tell me, in the broadest sense of the word, the kinds of things that you see coming in your doors, what kinds of issues they're working with? I know we've talked about that a little bit earlier.
Abuse, grief, any type of trauma.
Like, for example?
Help me, Lanie.
Well, we look at little trauma, right, and big trauma, but little trauma is not little to the person who's experiencing it. It's just the way the world thinks about it.
Right.
But anything that's overwhelming to a person, with the digital age right now, that is overstimulating the minds of the young people, and we're not able to nurture people anymore. The computer and the phone, the computer we keep in our pockets, nurturing them. Anxiety on so many different levels, fear. And, in Romans 8, it says that we will be groaning, and it's all the different groanings of the world. They come in just situational things, relational things, trauma, yes, childhood trauma, anxiety, depression, you name it, marital discord,
Low self-esteem.
low self-esteem. What
boy.
do we do with our kids?
Yes.
Right.
We're doing a Bible study at our church right now, and talking about fear versus anxiety, and fear creates a sort of fight or flight response. It's, we do something to reduce our fear, whether it's of a snake or whatever it is. But anxiety is something like we say, like, what if? And so that just hangs inside you. What if this? What if something doesn't happen? Or what if this happens to me? And you don't know how to respond to that because it's not a direct threat that's in front of you, like fear often is. Speaking of screens and all, do you guys find out who to answer this? Are we seeing any younger populations coming into the refuge that we may not have seen 15, 20 years ago because of screens and online bullying and the like?
We are. The residential program is seeing it, but we're also seeing it in the just community counseling. We have parents who are calling, and it's a great need. It's sad, but we can minister because we have the Word of God. And, like you said, the anxiety that's spoken to over and over in Scripture. And again, the foundation that Donna started off with was God is sovereign. He's King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and that when we put our trust in Him and we walk by faith, then those things begin to melt away.
We're right now working on Philippians 4, where Jesus says, "Be anxious about nothing, but everything through prayer and supplication." So it's easy to say and hard to do.
It is.
Hard to do because we're all anxiety just eats away at all of us at something or other, health or money or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's on the horizon for you guys in the next 5 years? You guys do strategically, you must do visiting and looking ahead, what's out there, and what's on the flip charts in those discussions.
Right now, the board is very actively looking at where we go from here. We're not sure. Of course, we're we're the worker bees, right? But they have been meeting with us as staff and volunteers and listening to us. And we see so many needs out there. We want to be actively working strategically. We don't want to be so broad that we are useless, but we want to really key in on what the Lord's put on our plate. And it may be name change so that people can find us
Really?
better.
Wow, that's interesting.
It may mean, different type of marketing. But right now we are just here for people, right? Men, women, children, marriages, to help them get through their groanings of life.
And so there are a lot of Christian counselors and psychotherapists and other counselors in the community and the world. What is the Christian piece what makes you guys unique, or is it more than that? I mean, what?
I think it's the biblical part of it.
Yes.
It's, I get calls that'll say, are you Christian based? And I emphasize it's biblically
Yeah.
based because Christian can be so broad.
Yeah.
And I've been asked, well, what do you mean biblically based? And it's like I said, everything we say and we encourage in our clients and residents is we can back up with the Bible, with reference, and it's directing your focus to God. So much is we look to ourselves and to others. And what I found so encouraging was that the counselors are there to help you, to guide you, not to put your trust in them. The encouragement is to put your trust in God. And God uses those counselors to work in the lives of many women. The one thing I want to stress is the refuge doesn't just meet the people that come to the refuge. They meet the families. Like, I'll just give you a little bit of mine. When I came to the refuge, I was in a very abusive marriage. I have 3 children. I had no relationship with those children because I had been in and out of psychiatric hospitals, attempted suicide several times, and wasn't there as a mother for my children. So I had no relationship. My kids were angry with me. After coming to the refuge, I now have a close, wonderful relationship with all 3 of my children, their family, and what God did through the refuge in me trickled down to my family. It trickles down. It's not just
powerful
an
witness.
individual.
You have a powerful witness. You both of you guys do. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Reintroducing ourselves, I'm Pastor Greg. This is Church Meets World, and I'm with Lanie Bishop and Kathy Thompson from the Women's Refuge Center. A couple things crossed my mind. Is center still in your title?
No, it's
okay,
not.
so I'm glad you said that because I keep thinking center, and you're saying refuge, which that sums up what you guys do so much more completely than. Was it ever in that?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, so this is my thing.
That's okay.
Thank you for sharing that, and that's a big learning thing for me. The other thing I just was thinking about, based on what you're saying, Kathy, many people find offense in the cross of Christ. It's not a universally unifying thing, and so I'm just wondering if you think that the biblical piece is something that may turn away someone who they don't know what they're missing. You may not be able to tell that because you wouldn't knock on the door unless you were interested. You understood what you guys do. But is that something you guys ever contemplate?
I'm not sure.
In other words, if I'm looking for support as someone who's got some issues with abuse or neglect or whatever, self-esteem, and I look through Google or wherever I look to find these resources, and I see Women's Refuge and other counseling services, the biblical piece may steer me in another direction, because I don't want to be preached at. I don't want to be talked to about Jesus and the like. So that's what I'm sort of getting
Yeah.
at.
We have had like one of the questions when I talk to a potential client is, do you understand that our counseling here is biblical?
Nice. Yep.
That is something we want to make very clear. We don't stray from that for any reason. It's biblically based. And I would say I've been there on staff now for June will be a year that I've been on staff. I've had maybe two people that said, no, I wasn't aware of
Just not
that,
for me. Yeah.
and then said, no, I don't want
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But, it's where they're at.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I love the fact that we don't stray from that. We
Yeah,
make that
good for you,
very
yeah.
clear.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
In my work, and this not me alone, but clergy see this all the time, where parents and grandparents lament the fact that their kids aren't in church, the fact that they're not, they've wandered. But I try to encourage them to say, look, baptized in Jesus Christ, they may have left the church, but the church has not left them. So that's a very consoling message for folks who want to see their kids in church and have their grandkids baptized and raised in the church and confirmed and so forth. But the power of God goes beyond the church, beyond the building of the church, to each of us, and God has us covered. Well, I want to wrap up this morning. Guys, thank you so much. Lanie Bishop and Kathy Thompson
Thank
from
you.
Women's Refuge, Vero Beach. So your next event, one more time, Lanie, is
Our most the nearest thing is our codependency weekend, which is coming up April 9th, 10th, and 11th, and that is just a weekend retreat that we have, and that's open to the public. We have two. You can either come and actually stay on property, and we will host you, or you can come for just the classes and leave again. But that is open to the public. And then the next big event we have is the health and wellness, and that's coming up in May 13th. And all this information is on our website, which is Women's Refuge, V as in victory, B as in boy.org. And you can call us at 772-770-4424, and you'll talk to Kathy.
all right. And I'll see you in September.
Excellent.
For the golf tournament. And again, I'm Pastor Greg, closing out Living Lord Lutheran Church here in Vero Beach. Online at livinglordlutheran.com. And peace be with you.
Thank you.
thank you.
You've been listening to Church Meets World with Pastor Greg. Join us for Worship Sunday.